90s Liefeld goodness.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's what we do here on New Comic Book Day Book Club. Hey guys, what's up? My name's Alec. This is White Whale Comics. I'm here with John and our special guest, Drew Manchu, Bay. And we had to call a bit of an audible today because we were going to read Deceased, the new Deceased that came out today, to give it a second shot because I dumped all over the first one so hard that we said, let's give it another chance because everything deserves a second chance. But then the unnamed East Coast distributor, Midtown, decided to not send books out on time for DC. So a lot of shops, including mine, did not get them today.
Sad state of affairs.
We had to push that back. Way to go, DC, and your new model for distributing books. So we decided to torture ourselves and read X-Force 100 and X-Force number 1. Did I say X-Force? New Mutants 100 and X-Force number 1.
Yeah. X-Force number 1 and basically X-Force number 0.
Yeah. So without further ado, let's just jump into this pile of shit. Boys.
It's been a while since I had read these issues, I will happily say. And I got rid of a ton of my X-Force books, like about 15 or so of them. So I didn't actually have issue 1 anymore. I did have the New Mutants stuff. I'm still holding on to some of the New Mutants, clearly. So it was interesting going back and looking at it from the perspective of, like, okay, I read it when I was a kid. I read it again when I was older and could look and say, yeah, that's not really very good. And then I could look at it now that I've been reading a lot more comics, a lot of indies, a lot of just seeing a lot of talented people in every level. And you look at this and you start really questioning your life.
So before we get too deep into it, I do want to shout out the chat. John's Comics with Kids was here hawking my own merchandise before we started. Comic Man Andy was here dumping all over me because I put the AM PM wrong when I set this program up.
Oh my.
Gore Vidal, nice to see you, my friend. Samuel David, thanks for stopping in. Backseat Driver, hello, buddy. Luis Ramirez, nice to see you as well. And of course, TJ, the Slab Dragon Watson, always a pleasure. Saying, bring on the packing material. Grey Matter Hulk made it just in time to get a shout out. What's up, buddy? Yeah, I was really hoping to be like, to read this and be like, boy, this was a great nostalgia read, even if it wasn't great. Like, I still really had a good time with it. For me, that was not the case.
I might shock a few people when I say that when I went back and revisited these 2 issues, the art's better than I would give it credit for. Now, there's definitely shortcomings, but when you read this book and compare it to the other books that were coming out at the time, there are very dynamic panels, very dynamic layouts. It keeps moving. There are definitely pages that are better than others, but I would venture to guess that if you are going to look at any Liefeld of the era, these are the best 2 examples of what he can do right. I think that writing-wise, it's absolute dreck. It's cliche on top of cliche on top of cliche. It's a hat wearing a fake mustache on top of its hat. It's just like there are 2 story arcs going on in New Mutants 100. One of them,
which makes sense.
One of them is there's no sort of setup for why they're happening in either case. But one of them's Farrell running away from the Morlocks and showing up and accidentally fighting, and one of them is Shatterstar just showing up for Mojoverse and accidentally fighting, and then everybody's just fighting each other, and then poor Proudstar shows up and he's just like, welcome to the team, and he doesn't even get to like be a secret. Like we're not even getting into that. He's just like, okay, well, I guess I'm the big guy who opens the door now because we need a big guy to open the door. It's just and every character design is pretty much the same. What's with these domino circles like on the eyes? You got Wildside has them, Deadpool has them, Like Domino has one. You know, it's
Wild Style and Feral basically have the same gloves with the same claws and the same pointy hair in the back.
Yeah.
So if for those of you who don't watch every piece of my content, shame on you. But I did one of my artist review series I did on Liefeld, and that was one of the things I kind of said was that, yeah, you can shit on him, and he deserves a lot of crap, but like he does certain things well, and drawing like dynamic things he's pretty decent at it. I mean, he doesn't draw them necessarily that well, but he does. He does it.
Here's I loaded a panel that I really liked. If you want to show one that I thought was kind of cool, when he lops off that guy's hand and the hand's like flying towards us, and it's dynamic. It's fun to look at, and action is happening, and it's
they're breaking out of the panel. It feels like it's coming at you because of the way they break the panel at the top of the screen makes that glove, even though it's not breaking the panel, feel like it's flying at you in a way that you didn't get at comics of the time. Like that wasn't the contemporaries of the time were not doing dynamic things like that.
Yeah, and you have to remember that, and I think this says a lot about why comics were the way they were in the 90s, was that Liefeld was like one of the most popular artists of this time. And that wasn't just for no reason. It's because there was like a lot of boring comic art. Now, having said that, compared to art now, it's a garbage pile. And I think two things that people don't dump on him enough for is that he can't draw pupils and he can't draw legs that aren't perfectly straight. Like every character who's standing is just like locked knees, like you're going to pass out any second from those.
There's a good one.
Kind of the opposite of the Kirby squat.
I love this panel of Boom and Cannibal. They look so like stiff and wooden. They're like
what is that lean she's doing?
I don't know. She's trying to get him stiff and wooden.
They're just talking about romance and being in love with each other, and they both look like they're wooden figures. And I don't think their knees are even in the right place.
I got issues. Not a fan. Liefeld's a dumpster fire in human form. Yeah,
his writing, obviously,
he is not great for the industry, especially nowadays. But I mean, having said all that, we're gonna definitely dump on Liefeld quite a bit. I feel like, because there is a lot to dump on. But I don't even know how to recap these issues because they like didn't. Okay, go ahead. I dare you to, because for me, they did like not flow in a way that made sense as a story.
No, they did not. Their issue 100 of New Mutants is kind of a standalone story, but the problem is it demands that you know a ton of background on a ton of things going on in the X universe at the time. But basically, the New Mutants are on the edges of giving up. They've had members leave, and they're in the X mansion, even though the dream is dead. And the mansion gets invaded by a character named Shatterstar from another universe, and he's being chased by enemies from the Mojoverse. And then you have Feral, who is running away from the Morlocks, and she is also, apparently it's really easy to break into the X mansion because both of these characters do it without any real difficulty. And then both of them, when they stumble on our heroes, feel the need to fight them before communicating with them, even though they both came there for their help, right? I came here because I needed the mutants to help me, but I'm going to fight the first people I find and not explain myself. That's the strategy they both seem to embark on.
In defense of Shatterstar, the vid feed that he saw of the X-Men did not look like them, the New Mutants. So they're
not the X-Men.
Right. So he didn't see them and think these are the people I've come to speak with.
But he's got to know that like time has passed and he could just talk to them and find out, right?
They're not wearing blue and yellow X's. They are wearing pouches on pouches. That's not
and shoulder pads to the end of time, baby.
And in Shatterstar's own words, he is not great at socializing. He's a fighting machine.
Yeah. So then it's basically a sort of long, drawn-out battle where they're like fighting each other, and then the real enemy shows up, then they're fighting the enemies, and then and then they decide that we should be a team, and we're going to become X-Force, and we're going to ditch the mansion, and that's kind of the whole thing. And then X-Force 1 jumps a significant amount of time ahead. Was it 6 weeks, 2 months, something like that? And they are on a mission, this X-Force team, and they're attacking Strife at his secret base and trying to take out his military apparatus. And then afterwards, sort of debriefing the mission and dealing with it.
Now you skipped over something very important at the end of New Mutants 100.
Oh, I'm sure.
The great villain reveal.
The villain reveal of Strife that it's Cable.
Yeah.
I have
it's actually, for my money, the only compelling thing about this issue is because that character design on Strife is awesome. It's like one of those things that it's a diamond in the rough, and not just because it's pointy. But the fact that it's Cable and that's like the reveal already is not only do we get a big bad guy reveal, but we get a reveal that is it our hero as well. I actually found that compelling and interesting, and not until they actually start getting into who Strife is do I feel like it jumps the shark as far as making any sense. But the lead up to it, I thought was interesting at least.
So yes.
No, I mean, as a kid,
I also liked how they had the thing on the last page. It was like, if this doesn't make you want to buy X-Force 1, nothing will. Like, don't patronize me, Marvel.
I mean, I dug these a ton. I read these issues. I probably read the Liefeld run of X-Force and New Mutants a ton. Well,
sure. When I was a kid, I thought this was the shit.
Oh my god, I was living for that issue of New Mutants when it's like Wolverine versus Cable on the cover. I was like, that's my jam. That's my jam right there. But yeah, I mean, I look at it now, and definitely some of the light has gone out of it for sure. And there are so many panels where I'm looking at it thinking like this one. Why doesn't he have eyes? Like why are his eyes just?
He never draws eyes. Everyone's pupilless all the time, and all of the panels are just so they feel so claustrophobic.
Well, it looks like he has eyes, but the colorists missed them because they're not obvious.
That could be the part of the problem. Let's see what else I got here. This cover. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people. No, 8.
0 feet.
No feet. Yeah, no feet. And the shoulder. Come on, Cable looks ridiculous. He looks like a imitation of himself.
That's the best Cable's ever looked, in my opinion.
Oh my God, look at his knee.
Look at his hands.
His hands are so tiny. His arms are so big. His shoulder pads. Holy crap!
Look, I'll give you this. There is zero attention paid to anatomic correctness in any way, shape, or form. But probably the best New Mutants artist, the most celebrated, Bill Sienkiewicz, also had a very surrealist style. I don't think that's intended here.
I was going to say, this is not surrealist. This is just incorrect.
Oh, look at the size of those hands versus the size of his knees. It's pretty surrealist.
But I think it's a good point, because you can tell when someone does it intentionally and why someone does it because they don't know how to do it right.
Right.
Do you have the panel that I requested, John?
Yeah, let me see where that one is there.
So this is my absolute favorite panel, because he's breaking the fourth wall, something fierce, because Strife is standing on another panel.
Yeah, but at least his legs bent.
Yeah, that's some meta comics right there.
He's pulling the captain.
Exactly what I said earlier.
Like what a bold choice.
And what's making his cape pop in the back like that?
Starch,
man. Look at it.
Swagger.
Just pop. Woo! It's like somebody's back there like waving air underneath it. Let's see what else I got here. That's a lot. I got this fight is absolutely balls crazy for me. Is Cable attacking with a teabag move?
I feel like he's shooting and being knocked backwards almost.
Yeah.
Everybody else is leaping forwards.
I also think that the drawing of his right hand is so bad they just decided to put the lettering of X-Force right over it. His arm is like gone. I can't even figure out how it is back here behind him doing what it's doing.
I also find it very funny. This page confused the shit out of me because the page before, they're just in the mountains. They're like, They landed their plane in the middle of the mountains. You don't see an entrance to a base. You don't see a base. They're just like, there's one very poorly drawn wide panel. And then it's just a bunch of like crowded close-ups. And then all of a sudden they're like, all right, let's do this. And they are in this base fighting who the hell knows who.
Right. How hard would it have been to draw a bunker as an establishing shot?
Yeah,
probably not that hard. You know what? I will give this panel props because it's got a background,
sort of.
And
I mean, it's not identifiable, but
I see.
No, it's just random text stuff.
There's a ton of feet in this one. Feet from all angles.
He doesn't have a problem drawing feet. Everybody's just wearing these elf booties. He can't draw boots to save his life.
Or the giant puffy gloves that come out like all the way to the elbow.
Right. Everybody's got those fanning embellishments on their gloves.
Let's see what else I got. These. I mean, firstly, if you want to shut up, big boy, I'll rip your. If you want her to shut up, big boy, I'll rip her tongue out for you. Now she's jumping to attack this guy, and then he says that won't be necessary. Now she's behind Cable, but these panels go side by side. That won't be necessary, Farrell, but we'll keep your offer in mind. Thank you. She jumps forward and then somehow lands behind Cable.
Yeah, and that gun is that's legit hardware.
Well, sure.
That's like a Mike Zeck Punisher handgun. Look at that. Look at the details.
I just don't know how. And then, of course, she's just doesn't wear underwear. She's just all booty there because she's an animal.
Yeah. Easy access.
Right. Let's see what
it's like the butthole cut of cats.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. These pages. This is New Mutants 100. No, on the left, nobody's actually making contact with anything. I don't understand what Proudstar's doing. He looks like he's throwing something or hitting. He's just moving, and people are getting closer to him, so he's not making any real contact. But the guy behind him looks like he just fell backwards. And then she's kicking, but she's really hit the air. The guy's not really there. And then I don't know what Shatterstar's doing, but there's a guy in front of him, and it looks like his back and his butt.
It looks like he rolled a 1 on that attack.
Isn't that Proudstar?
Is that Proudstar's leg?
Are you talking about the second panel down?
Yeah.
That's like the back of an enemy's knee. Like that's the view from the ground.
So then what is he attacking? How low is he?
He's making a defensive stand, I guess. I don't know.
How low can he go?
Gee, I'm going to have to explain all of these panels.
And then on the one on the right,
I want that job.
The one on the right slays me because he clearly worked really hard to get the lines right to make it look three-dimensional. But it looks like one guy's floating up and off the paper.
Right. Looks like he's running
away.
There's no logic to the three-dimension here.
Dave Enrique says, have you ever guys noticed that X-Force 1 has an opening sequence, first 2 to 3 pages, that directly swipes New Teen Titans 39 opening sequence by Perez? Completely swipe that I've always faulted Liefeld on.
Ooh, I'll have to look for that Teen Titans 39 and compare. That's hilarious. So yeah, these bugged me. This one, they look like 3 characters that were just sort of glued on together. They don't actually have any relation to one another. They're all very flat to one another. It just kind of weirded me out. And then I don't know what's going on with Cable's finger. The one finger is really long.
It's his pointer finger. He uses that one for all the pointing.
For the that finger's for the ladies.
Think of how it looks when he's like, I'm number 1, and his finger's just super long, like ET finger.
So there you go. There's a little.
I also found certain things really funny. How they're like, oh, they've already nicknamed this base the Schwarzkopf. It's like, okay, that I'll forgive that for being a dated reference. But then when Farrell first attacks somebody, someone says oh, she's really going after them like something or else, and then someone's like, or Manson. It's It's like,
Yeah, there was a man. That was Boom Boom.
Like,
always with the timely references.
yeah, but first of all, Charles Manson, I mean, probably did, but was never convicted of killing anybody. He was a cult leader. He wasn't a mass murderer or a serial killer.
Look, if we want to get into defending Charles Manson, I'm with you there.
I'm not defending Charles Manson. I'm just like, pick someone who's killed a bunch of people.
You're saying you wanted a Dahmer reference or something.
Yeah, say Dahmer or Ted Bundy or...
so many options. Why would you pick that one?
Yeah.
Ed Gein.
Ed Gein didn't even kill that many people.
Yeah, but he was inventive.
Yeah, he was a unique fellow. So that just, I rolled my eyes at that one. Yeah, man, listen, these were not enjoyable at all.
No.
There was no moment where I was like, okay, this is rolling, or like, okay, I'm kind of invested in this story. It was just like, every page didn't make a lick of sense. I didn't care what was happening. The dialogue was dumpy. The plot was worse than the dialogue. Woof. 0 stars.
I don't know that I'd be that harsh on it. It definitely has a little nostalgia for me, so I definitely clearly I still have some Liefeld love in my heart. But I what I got out of it was just I could transport myself back to my youth and be able to see the kind of like, oh, look, people are getting their hands chopped off, and people are fighting page to page. There's no like boring anything. It's just balls to the wall fighting.
I'm gonna make a bold statement. I liked the art better than the story. That's
fair. Honestly, that's fair. That's what I'm saying. Like the action of it, like let's just blow. Even if it's nonsensical, it's like a Michael Bay movie or something. You're just gonna like it's stuff's just gonna. Although actually, Michael Bay movies look really nice. The cinematography
and they're terrible, but they're entertaining. Like,
are they sometimes? Maybe
sometimes. Like,
seen The Island,
The Rock. You did that right.
The Rock is, I guess, a good movie.
Or Bad Boys.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Like, I'm not saying he's got all hit club bangers, but like his good stuff is like they're not gonna win an Academy Award, but like you watch him, you're like, yeah, okay, I had a great time watching that.
Yeah, chase scene on The Rock was really good.
Yeah, he does what he does really well. Whereas this was 2 dumpster fires straight up in the air.
I like to posit a response to that. I think that there's definitely an audience for Liefeld's Drek, to the point where he's still selling covers and he's still being signed to write books and create. And right now, that he's still viable in the marketplace for some reason. And this is the peak. He worked up to being this good. And then since he has not worked as hard on anything, this is the end of his New Mutant run where he had the opportunity to say, look, I'm going to do my own thing with these characters. And X-Force was the first issue of him doing his own thing with those characters. I think before that, he wasn't as good. And since then, hasn't been as good as it was in these 2 issues. That being said, they're still terrible. But this, I mean, it is the peak of Liefeld's abilities.
Yeah. And also, like, he was still very young when this came out.
Like, yeah, he was still making Levi's jeans commercials.
Like 1920, maybe. Like, and if you, I mean, not that I am a especially good artist, but like, you look at my art from that time and it wasn't, a tenth as good as this. So you got to give him, I mean, now, having said that, he hasn't improved as much as he should have in the last 30 years. But
I mean, that's the shade that people legitimately can throw at him, is that it's not like he has been trying to grow and cultivate his talent.
But I mean, you look at Jim Lee, and now he started off a lot better than Liefeld, but his stuff looks pretty much exactly the same as it did back then.
Well, I think before the Image split and before Liefeld started smelling his own farts, he was known as the kind of guy who would make a deadline. Back then, like, they were asking him to make pretty much insane turnaround on these X-Force New Mutants books. He came on and he became part of the factory system. And I think when you're putting those things out at that kind of clip, sometimes a dynamic layout with roughed in art is the best you could hope for. So, I mean, he was selling books. Obviously, they didn't think there was anything wrong about it, and he was getting them out on time.
And
so
he inked this as well.
he might have just used a pen. Just
yeah, just like went straight in.
A step.
Went straight in and said, "Well,
right,
it's on the page now."
Yeah. Well, what are they going to do? Tell me they're not going to print it? That's
It's
why
the
there's a lot of
90s.
shortcuts.
Nobody's cared. Nobody cared.
There's a lot of reused panels. There's a lot of reused layouts throughout the first, I would say, 10 to 15 of these issues of X-Force. There's a lot of stuff that's just kind of jammed in there that was used before just to save time. Recycled pages, recycled layouts. Eventually it becomes old hat.
So I this did make me realize one other thing as well. I enjoy writing, and I feel like over the years my writing has improved quite a bit because I go back and look at stuff that I wrote when I was a teenager or in college, and I'm like, well, woof, that was like, pretty silly, goofy stuff. And then I read this and I said, oh, I was just emulating what I was reading in comics, because like my stories when I was in high school were just like this. And it made me feel a lot better that I was not necessarily a terrible writer when no one's a great writer when they're in high school, but like I wasn't just a terrible writer, it was that I was being affected by what I was reading. But the guy who wrote this was a professional comic writer who got paid to do it.
Yeah, that's the kind of fundamental difference there.
Right. I think if I went back and dug out some of my old notebooks and looked at some of the layouts and the way that I drew pictures, I think a lot of it would be inspired by not only Liefeld, but Jim Lee in a way. And Jim Lee had a way of making anatomy kind of work for him with different characters in a way that Liefeld didn't. But at the same time, Liefeld created these frames of action that you never saw in a Jim Lee book. Jim Lee was, great close-ups, wide shots, people standing around looking like a team. Jim Lee's great at that. I think, but as far as reading a book that like screams action, no matter how confusing and clumsily the action is kind of paced or staged throughout the panels, I think Liefeld knocks it out of the park with just giving you excitement on the page. When you start to look, you look at it real quick and it looks great, then you start to examine it and you're like, wait a second, why is that person standing there? Why is this person's hand this big? But like when you look at the cover of X-Force 1, that wraparound, Cable is a dynamic figure. You can still you start examining why he looks the way he looks, and it all falls apart.
It's like Monet. You take a quick look at it and you're like, oh, there's a lovely painting of flowers. Then you look closer at it and you're like, oh, it's a bunch of blotches of paint.
Yeah, this guy couldn't see.
But are you implying that, like, I'm trying to understand the comment on Jim Lee, because
I think that like you can. I'm not saying that Jim Lee is bad. I'm saying that Liefeld has his strengths, and I would compare him to a contemporary at the time. Jim Lee would probably be the first one that comes to mind, just because they were both doing X-Men books at the same time, both left to do the Image thing. But I think that, like, when you look at a Jim Lee book, his art is more realistic. It's not as stylized, I'll say. But I also read that first couple issues of Jim Lee's X-Men, and like there's not a whole lot of action. There's a lot of standing around talking about the action and reacting to something that's over there. That's just kind of the way that those books are built, and I think these books are built in a way that it's like we're not going to do standing around. We're going to throw as much garbage at the wall to keep you flipping the page. And Shatterstar might be able to stand there and react to something, but he's going to have his legs spread wide, jumping out with two swords during an exposition panel for no fucking reason whatsoever, and that's exciting. There's a sense of movement to it that I think that I'll say again didn't really exist in comics of that era. There's great action panels, but you weren't flipping the page and seeing, oh, that guy looks like he's running up a wall. That guy's jumping over here. This guy's got 12 different pouches on his belt, and his arm has 18 different muscles in it. Like, it may not be realistic, but it was over the top and maybe schlocky, but at least he threw enough at the wall that some of it stuck.
Yeah.
Corvidal says Liefeld isn't Jack Kirby, but Kirby was criticized by comic readers for his block-like characters, over-the-top splash pages, which weren't realistic, especially when the Neil Adams style was emulated.
Yeah, I can see that. I was just saying, like Alec earlier, you said that Jim Lee hasn't changed, and I would argue that my favorite Lee stuff, as far as like readability, like Drew's saying, and as far as dynamics and for me, just on the art side, Hush is like the pinnacle for me. I feel like he evolved a lot to Hush, and the art style from X-Men. I mean, I love the X-Men stuff, but I see growth from that to Hush personally.
I'll take All-Star Batman and Robin any day.
Oh yeah,
that's like the perfect kind of Frank Millery Drek. But his depiction of
the goddamn Batman,
the Dick Grayson Robin costume, and the way Jim Lee drew that in a modern comic was just absolutely perfect. I think that everything about the visuals of that book work on every level. If you read it like it's comedy, it's gold.
Right.
It's the whole yellow painted house.
Maybe
gold.
It's just because like it still looks exactly like Jim Lee.
Yeah.
It's just it's just better version of the same thing. Like he hasn't evolved at all in his art style. It's just like I've gotten better at it.
Like what you're saying. But I do feel like his ability to tell panel to panel story and make things more dynamic and flow better. I feel like that portion of his craft has grown a ton.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah.
I don't know. I think his art is unmistakable as his own, but that doesn't mean that he hasn't grown. An artist like Mike Allred, who started out with a very cartoony style and has turned it into this like 60s pop art kind of thing that he does now. If you look at his early stuff, it's unmistakably Mike Allred, and if you look at his stuff now, it's unmistakably Mike Allred. But there's definitely an evolution to the way that he crafts his characters and designs his characters.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think like a lot of great artists have a natural style that they stick to. But I think for me, like the really great artists kind of can take a step back and kind of reinvent themselves and kind of change what they do and kind of experiment and try new things.
Yeah.
But that's what makes them so few and far between.
Agreed.
Got a little quiet there. So any of you looking to get a gift for Alec, he's looking for the Liefeld hardcover edition of these issues, if you can find that.
Yeah, the Omni.
Yeah.
Listen, I was as much of a fan back in the day as anybody. I remember redrawing his covers to X-Force issues and just thinking he was so cool, and Cable and Deadpool and everything. But it doesn't hold up at all. And you think about like, you could say it's just a sign of the times, but like there are good books that came out at this time that you reread now and you're like, these are still great.
I think you could argue it was a sign of the age of the people buying it. I think the majority of collectors buying it were probably younger.
Yeah, I was 11, 12 when this came out. I was exactly who they wanted to target.
Exactly. I'm saying like I have a feeling that the older collectors of the time, the people in their 40s or 50s at that time, probably weren't rushing out to read these.
No. It was the same as today. It's like they're like, oh, these millennials and they're social justice warriors on my books. It said they were just using different buzzwords.
These Levi's ads.
Yeah. Damn Liefeld and his button fly. Who does he think he is?
Is TJ saying he has an X-Force 1 and a 9.9?
No, he's saying he said he's gonna get it for me as an AOK, judging by the devil emojis.
Gotcha. There you go.
Only if it has the Deadpool card.
Polybag? You want a polybag 9.9?
Yeah, they won't do that, will they?
No.
Well, that's why I'll never get it.
Sucker.
Dave Maris says my favorite image book of all time was Shadowhawk.
Wrong answer.
Are you talking strictly
Savage Dragon?
Strictly of the launch titles, or literally your favorite image book of all time?
It's Wildcats. Come on.
It's
the X-Men allegory.
I like Cyberforce.
Cyberforce was okay. You know who I did like was Bad Rock. Even though he's Liefeld Drek, I like Bad Rock. But people still talk about how Spawn is great, and I still talk about how those people are stupid.
Yeah, Spawn's super boring. I never liked that book.
But you had a ton of them.
Me? No, those were all the friends.
Oh, the ones you were selling were okay. I forgot.
Yeah, they didn't belong to me. I was doing that to help him and his baby, who's doing great, by the way.
Yeah, he's saying the launch books.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot more sense because I was going to say there was.
Well, yeah, I mean nowadays you've got Saga and Walking Dead and whatever.
I don't know. Savage Dragon to me, I tried to reread that and it did not work out. I was just like, meh. I'm gonna put this over here now.
I mean, give Eric Larson his credit. He's always just kind of done what he wanted to do.
Fact.
Yeah, next week, Savage Dragon issue number 250 comes out, and there are a million great covers.
Yeah, unlike
covers.
Unlike Spawn.
Yeah, well,
and Spawn also doesn't have a cover with a giant dick on it,
right? Or like a 5-person orgy.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Look it up, kids.
I don't have to look at the book. It's in the box right over there.
Yeah, keep that away from the kids. You guys got anything else left to say about this book, or should we wrap it on up?
Yeah. No, this is terrible.
It's really bad. It's really bad.
It was like I felt like I was being given homework. John's like, "Hey, you want to come do this thing?" And I was like, "Sure." And he's like, "We're actually doing this other thing instead." I'm like, "Fine." He's like, "A '90s Liefeld." I'm like, "Okay, all right." So
you could have said no. A bunch of other people.
You know what? I didn't want to say no because you guys invite me to do things so rarely. I felt like I wanted to be
true. Come on.
I felt like I wanted to be included.
Well, the good news is
you're always on our hearts, Drew.
Something you liked better,
like worms,
right?
So next week we get to read something you like.
Yes, next week Alec can tell us how bad this book I liked was.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully not. I hope I like it.
I hope
the cover's cool.
Too.
Blade Runner homage. How do you hate?
That's what I picked up the Blade Runner homage as well.
Hopefully, I can get a copy next week.
It's going to be one of those Hell Arisen. It's going to pop in value because they can't ship it right.
By the way, Batman '89. I saw it going for like $100 now. It's crazy.
What?
Yeah.
How's that '93 Art Germ cover doing?
I don't know. What do you guys got coming up on your channel, John?
I don't know that I got much of anything coming up here. I'm sure I have to do my birthday AOK from TJ Slab Dragon here at some point this weekend, probably.
Yikes.
Yeah. And I'm hosting book club next week with the same panel here. We're going to throw Perry in here, and we got a fans of Deceased Volume 1 versus critics of Deceased Volume 1, and we're going to read Deceased Volume 2, the first issue.
Or Volume 3?
I don't know how you count Unkillables. Isn't it like part of the original story? And this is like
Unkillables is Volume 2, I believe.
Okay, so this is
Volume 3. Okay. I didn't read Unkillables.
I heard it was better than the original.
I read the one shot. What was the one shot?
This is the big Barda Mr. Miracle thing.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I read that one.
Okay.
And Constantine showed up halfway through, and I was like, "Nerg."
I just wanted them to solve it. I wanted them to be the ones that would solve it. I wanted Miracle and Barda to be the big solution at the end of the thing.
But you read the issue that came out today? Or are you holding
No,
on?
not yet.
Okay.
I was not ready, so
All right.
it's sitting here ready for next week.
I very much enjoyed it.
What do you got, Drew?
We're going to be doing Modern Men on Monday. Will be a special Why the Last Man episode. We're going to be reading Why the Last Man. There's a poll right up now on the Comic Core community tab about what we will be reading the week after that. And a lot of Image number ones. We're going to be reading 1 and 2 volumes and basically doing a whole show on the review. I have a video that if my PC decides to cooperate with me in the next couple of hours, it'll be going up tomorrow morning on the Comic Core. And so keep your eyes peeled for that. Beyond that, I'm around.
Very nice. I got D&D on Sundays here on my channel with John and a bunch of other fine guys. We're doing Curse of Strahd, and it's been pretty fun. So stop on by, catch up if you haven't yet.
I dropped the link for the Comic Core if you guys haven't subscribed, which is crazy because we're all 3 members there, and you can definitely catch more of us.
Yeah, I don't know if I saw anybody in the chat who I don't see over there occasionally. So
yeah, but you never know.
And then I keep dropping Alex T Public. You guys should just at least check it out. There's some cool shirts over there. I got mine.
Because I'm never going to promote myself, so John does it for me. Thank you, John.
Somebody's got to do it.
give me one of those 9.4 shirts.
What's that?
Gonna give me one of those 9.4 shirts.
They're pretty hot. And then
Adam says, "Did you kick me out of Dungeons and Dragons?"
no, you're still there. Of course.
You said other guys.
Oh, I said other good guys. Yeah, you're one of them. I mean, and on the show you play an evil guy, but that's okay. And then on Monday, I'm going to be defending my Comic Core title on Boy God 7's channel.
Oh, nice.
And then next week we got our Comic Core show, and then back on John's channel for this show. Otherwise, I don't know. It is what it is. I'm going to stay inside and try not to get COVID.
We go to work all weekend and probably get COVID.
Florida is buck wild. It's the goddamn Wild West in the Southeast. But in the meantime, thanks for joining us. Thank you to Drew and John for hanging out and putting up with this nonsense this evening. And stay safe.